player to make the top 8. It's not impossible, but I imagine it will be difficult. Reid, Duke versus Thomas Strong underway here. Round 16 of 16. Game number 1, each player leading off with a fetch land. Duke will take a look at his hand, survey the board, gonna play an Arid Mason before passing the turn back over to Strong. Don't know if Duke knows what he's up against here. These players have been sitting at the top tables for a while. They've also been in the draw bracket, so you imagine they've sat next to each other quite a few times, but we'll see what does occur here. Looks like Strong has a flooded strand. He's gonna go with the Tundra, simply pass the turn back over to Duke, who does draw a card for the turn. Duke gonna play a flooded strand before passing the turn back over to Strong. He's gonna play a Mishra's Factory, a card we don't see a ton actually in Legacy anymore.
Yeah, it used to be a larger player in the format. It should be pretty powerful though in a matchup like this where there's a lot of time on both sides of the board.
So neither play in a rush here. Strong is going to sacrifice the Scalding Tarn. He'll go searching for a land. Again, blue-white Stoneblade. He's going to go get a Tundra. Safe for him. Doesn't have to worry about Wasteland. He's got some unique fun-ofs as far as lands are concerned. He's got a Dust Bowl, Caracas, 2 factories, 1 plains, and then 6 islands. So he's taking a basic land approach. And he's going to try to break parity here with a Vendilion Clique on the end step.
All right, so things that are going to be important right now, you know, land development, card advantage. There's going to be a lot of one-for-one-ing going on here. Any source of card advantage seems like it's going to be key.
Take a look at the Duke's hand there. From Vendilion Clique, 2 copies of Terminus, a Caracas, a Jace the Mind Sculptor, and a Spell Pierce.
Well, speaking of card advantage, I think there's a clear choice here as to what to take out of Reid's hand.
Perhaps it's time for the Mind Sculptor to go away, you say.
I hear he draws a couple extra cards from time to time.
See if Strong does agree with you. Taking a look at that hand, surveying his position, you can certainly see him take Spell Pierce here because he has 4 copies of Jace the Mind Sculptor of his own and 1 in his hand. Does he dare risk it? Does he take anything? The answer is no, he takes nothing.
All right. I guess what he realizes, he can resolve his own Jace right now. Well, he can't. No, there's a Spell Pierce. So he can't resolve Jace. He can resolve a Stoneforge, I suppose, if he has the counter spell for Reid's Jace. This is dicey because we can play Jace with Spell Pierce up.
Decisions. He's just going to pass the turn back.
Yeah, he can't do anything yet. He does have his own Spell Pierce and his own Jace and a counter spell, so he actually is positioned to win the counter war if it starts.
His deck is very interesting. 2 counter spells, 3 copies of Spell Pierce, 4 Jaces. So even though it is a Stoneforge Mystic deck, there are 4 Stoneforge Mystics and Guzawa Shite and a Batterskull. This is unlike anything we've seen for some time now. As Duke is going to sacrifice a Flooded Strand. He's going to go search out an island. We'll see if he's got any interest in playing a spell in his main phase here.
Yeah. Right now, I mean, they still both want to leave up enough mana to win this counter, where Reid does have the advantage that he gets to cast things like Counterbalance, which are very strong and are very cheap.
That one's actually worth countering. And it's funny because, you know, Counterbalance, he knows the other cards in Reid's hand, so, you know, what's the big deal? Well, Counterbalance can be anything. It's very volatile, and it can really mess up your plans.
Yeah, what this does mean is Thomas has to be worried about this Jace now, because if Reid just has a 6th land, he can play a Jace into a Spell Pierce.
Strong. Gonna now deploy a Stoneforge Mystic. Trigger that. That's gonna resolve. You gotta imagine it's gonna be Batterskull, but he could search up the GT if he'd like. Gonna go digging through the deck. Goes right by the GT, so it's time for a living weapon in the form of Batterskull. And after shuffling and presenting, I think that may end Strong's turn here.
And how good is Mishra's Factory right now? So if Reid makes the play where he plays Jace with the 6th land and Thomas can Spell Pierce it, and if Reid pays, then Tom can just simply hit Jace back with the Manlands to get it off the board.
Yeah, he'll be forced to Fate Seal in that situation, which is something he probably doesn't want to do. You imagine that he does just want to be able to brainstorm and get deeper into his deck, use those fetch lands, all that good stuff here, as he's going to sacrifice Scalding Tarn. But your point certainly still remains. Mishra's Factory is going to be clocking that, much like Mutavault would do to Planeswalkers in Standard.
Yeah, that's actually what I thought of too. I mean, both are 4-mana Jaces and 2-mana Manlands. It's actually a pretty similar situation.
Time to search up an island here for the Duke. He will shuffle, present here to Strong in just a moment. Again, both these players with a draw. Their decks are pretty deliberate and slow. They don't close very quickly, but one thing that can do that is Jace the Mind Sculptor. So that'll be placed onto the stack, and we'll see if Strong does have a response, and if we will have a battle over the best Planeswalker in Magic history.
I like how you can just throw that sentence out and no one even bats an eye
Go
at
ahead,
it.
Twitter. Go ahead, rebuff that. I'll have the discussion all day. It's so good it made me play blue, all right? There's no way it's not the best one. Spell Pierce going to be cast here on the Jace. Reid's going to sacrifice fetch lands to attempt to pay. We'll see if Strong has anything else. You see his hand right now. He's got 2 swords, a batter skull. But it doesn't, you know, how much does he care about this Jace in this situation? That's the big question. I mean, it is Jace, so you certainly care. But he's got a Jace of his own to resolve, too.
Right, so there's going to be a Jace on both sides. If Reid Fate Seals, he can keep the Jace alive. He can but if he brainstorms or unsummons, he loses it because of that factory. He's going to try to keep Jace alive anyway.
And he's going to go Fate Sealing himself. You see it tick up to 5, so we'll take a look at the top card of his deck. And he is going to give it a thought. And this is what he's looking for.
So, all right, let's go ahead and scry that to the bottom.
Yeah, so that is going to go away. And Duke is going to pass the turn back, as you mentioned. You see how Strong moved over the factory with the Scalding Tarn? I think he knows, all right, it's time to start clocking this.
It's ready.
But maybe not.
But maybe we'll just both play Jace.
All right, I think the plan now is I will play a Jace. I'm going to go brainstorming since you can't clock mine. There's a Dust Bowl among things that he can find here. Look, a couple of swords as well.
All of these one-ofs in Tom Strong's mana base. He has this Dust Bowl. I guess as we saw with Dust Bowl, and that's actually a 2 of Mishra's Factory. They were giving him a lot of extra leverage.
Going to sacrifice these fetch lands here, so it looks like he's got a spell that he may want to cast, or he may just want to put in Batterskull right away. Maybe he wants to wait because the Jace is unsummoned, but you see he's sacrificing these lands right now to go get 2 Tundras. So all of the Tundras are now out of his deck and into play. He'll present his deck over to Duke here in just a moment. See how Thomas wants to move forward after this.
He may try to get the Batterskull in play just so it doesn't get V-clicked. That would be a concern of his.
Yeah, it's an interesting situation. You might be scared of V-click, but you also probably don't want to put it in the face of Jace Unsummon, but then again, maybe you do. So it's a little game inside the game here. Looks like Reid says, I'm going to brainstorm. That's a good place for me to start. So 3 cards coming here.
Reid drawing. Now Reid gets his first chance to brainstorm.
No fetch lands here for Reid, though. Reid used a lot of fetch lands this game, 4 so far, and none in play. So we'll see if he can make it a perfect brainstorm and reset his deck or not. Duke does set 2 cards back. You see him slide a few lands over. Looks like he may have another one to play. Got 6 out there already. Looks like he's going to tap a mana, maybe a Sensei's Divining Top. How about a red Elemental Blast? Very Joe Lisette of you,
I was going to say, a page right out of his book. Main decking the Red Blast couldn't have come at a better time for him.
And now it's time to spin a top. And now it's back to Duke having the Jace advantage.
Yeah, this is a stressful situation for Tom here. Now there's only one Jace.
Batterskull is going to come into play from the Stoneforge Mystic. And there you do see the red Elemental Blast taking care of Jace. It's a weird card to have in the main deck, but blue is so popular in Legacy that it gives you a huge edge if you're able to start a couple of them. Joe Lisette with a lot of success doing that. Reid clearly with some success here as well, as he will spin the top, maybe on the hunt for a Terminus, maybe not. How about a Brainstorm to start?
Yeah, I don't know if he has a way to protect the Jace. He has the Terminus all along, it looks like.
It looks like he does have a way.
Yeah.
So he will reveal that from Brainstorm because that's going to be cast. Now, of course, he still does have to put 2 cards back, but Terminus is always going to stay in his hand. So that's the reason that that's revealed. 2 cards will go back. Now he will resolve Brainstorm. He will pay the cost for Terminus with Karakas to try to get these cards off of the table. And that's going to work. So Stoneforge is going to go away, as will the Germ Token. Of course, Batterskull will stay in play. But Reid is doing what I think he needs to, which is protect the Jace, because it's so important.
Yeah, we're not done yet, however. Thomas Strong gets another Jace of his own.
Reid gonna spin.
Yeah, he does have a Spell Pierce in one of these cards, so he can't just force Tom to tap out if that's something that he thinks he gains enough value from. Spell Pierce quickly becoming a dead card anyway.
Duke gonna set the top 3, and he says, all right, your Jace is in there. So now it's time to Brainstorm again for Strong. You see an Island, a Brainstorm, and a Ponder for our blue-white Stoneblade player. Take a look at the grip. Couple of cards to put back here. You see the Dust Bowl in the hand. Looks like he may put his swords back. You see a Brainstorm. Looks like that's going back as well. Maybe, maybe not. Brainstorm's a tough one to put back, but when you do have a Jace in play, how many of that effect do you need? That's certainly the question. But 2 cards do go back, and now it's time to fire off a Ponder, maybe with the intent of just shuffling his deck. See if Reid wants to counter this. As you mentioned, there's a Spell Pierce there.
All right, so now he actually could pierce it. We'll see. Reid's, I think, you're going to reposition his deck, get that Pierce on top. A card he maybe didn't think was going to be live now has a chance to be live. You see Reid shuffling around his cards. He also has another Terminus at the ready.
So he does draw Spell Pierce, and he will take care of the Ponder. Does not want that to resolve. There's a land for Strong. It's a Dust Bowl before passing the turn back.
Yeah, and that's got to be a spot where Thomas probably doesn't. That, you know, when you play the second land right after, untapped land right after getting Spell Pierced.
Yeah, a little awkward.
Yeah.
Little awkward. Let's see what Reid wants to do on this turn. He'll start by playing an island. This is the top that was on top of his deck. He's going to spin that, set up his draw. You mentioned the Terminus that's within those cards. There's also a Force of Will and a Swords of Plowshares. Those are the three that he is looking at.
Interestingly enough, Reid has very few ways to get that Jace off the table for Thomas Strong. He plays 2 Entreat the Angels as his win con, but other than that, he's not running any ways to get rid of the Jace. He had that one Red Bless, but it's already happened. No Council's Judgment to take care of it either.
It's time for a Brainstorm from the Duke via Jace. So 2 cards back on top. That means the 3rd card right now is a mystery, as Duke does pass the turn back with 5 mana available. It's time to have a Jace off. It's been a long time since we've seen this. A lot of players, again, part of the reason that Jace kind of went away is because of True Name Nemesis, because it can't take care of it and you can just clock Jace pretty easily, but neither player with that card in their main deck. So again, a little bit surprising to see just one player here in Strong has 4 Jaces in his main deck. You oftentimes see Jace in Miracles, but you don't see decks with 4 Jaces anymore. It seems like a relic of the past.
Yeah, 4 Jaces is a real big commitment to the card. You do see both players. There are 8 Jace the Mind Sculptors in this match. Both players with the full set and not with True Name Nemesis. So kind of a throwback going here.
When Wazawa's G-Tay will be searched up from a 2nd Stoneforge Mystic. You do see the Batter Skull in play. I wonder if Strong has any interest in maybe picking a fight with Dust Bowl here. He's got a bit of a land advantage. He can maybe try to cut Reid off of white mana, potentially red mana, not have to worry about those blast effects anymore. I don't know if this is a game about trying to destroy lands or just try to amass as many lands as possible.
Yeah, and Reid's actually in a tough spot. They're basically playing the same deck, but Reid is at a spot where he can't get rid of his opponent's Jace. So they both have a ton of cards, but Tom actually has proactive things, and Reid is just reacting. That said, all it's going to take is 1 Entreat the Angels for Reid to really turn this around.
I was going to say, that card's the big difference, right?
Yeah.
That's kind of the game breaker. Entreat the Angels, a card that Duke has that Strong doesn't, and not only does that create a problem, but it closes out a game very quickly.
Yeah, actually, sorry, Reid does have 1 Council's Judgment to remove the Jace. Okay. There was 1 in his list. But that is his only, you know, there's no Detention Sphere, no main deck Pithing Needle.
Batterskull's going to go back to the hand here for Strong. And now he's going to Brainstorm again. So we're going to see a lot of this, certainly in this game. 2 swords get put back very, very quickly. You see Strong playing at a pretty quick pace here because I think we're going to be in for a pretty long match here, Matthias.
Yeah, both players, somewhat unsurprisingly, already have a draw, so they can't take a second one. This is, once again, a match with top late implications.
Time to spin the top here for Duke. He'll take a look at a couple of cards. Take a look at the hand as well, figure out what he does want to do. And Strong's hand is, no pun intended, pretty strong. Couple of Brainstorms, another Jace over there. He's got a G-Tay and a Batter Skull. So his hand is pretty good. Again, his creatures, 4 Stoneforge, 4 Snapcaster, 2 Vendilion Click. Feels just like a blue-white control deck. Very traditional approach that Strong has taken throughout this tournament.
Yeah, and Reid's in a tough spot because he needs the Entreat the Angels to try to win the game. However, Tom Strong is waiting there with a traditional counter spell to take care of it.
You know, he can kind of pick his spots a little better, can Tom, with what he can do with Stoneforge Mystic, Batter Skull, G-Tay, the Factory that we mentioned early on in the game, Snapcaster Mage as well. Snapcaster Mage is really, really good in matchups like these.
Yeah, Strong with a full playset of Snapcaster Mages as well.
Again, we don't see decks like this a lot. Normally when people are playing blue-white, they either take the Esper Stoneblade, maybe Esper Deathblade approach, or Blue-Red Miracles. But blue-white Stoneblade we haven't seen for some time. A deck with 4 Jace the Mind Sculptors. It's been a while as well, as Duke will Brainstorm with his Jace right now. Of course, 2 cards will have to go back here in a moment for the member of the Pantheon.
Yeah, we'll see if he can find that win con, but Reid is definitely behind it. I think he's, oddly enough, this is about which Miracles Dorman doesn't find itself in. I feel like he's behind in this control mirror on paper. I think this deck list is not set up as well for the mirror as Strong's is.
That may be the case. Stoneforge Mystic does put Batter Skull into play. Looks like he's going to try to go after that Jace. You see Strong draw a copy of Swords of Plowshares. He's been putting those back very quickly with his Jace Brainstorms. But he may have to draw them eventually. And now they're going to go after Jace. It's time for an activation at the top. I think we both know what's coming here. There's a Terminus.
It's going to be a Terminus once again, but Tom Strong at the ready with Counterspell.
This is part of what makes Tom's deck a little bit difficult to play against. Those 2 copies of Counterspell, one with 3 copies of Spell Pierce, then Snapcaster Mage to tie the room together.
I mean, Tom's deck, it's a little slow right now, but it's really powerful at doing what it's doing. So you see, if you look at the spells he has here, he's 4 Force of Will, 2 Counterspell, 4 Snapcaster Mage, 4 Jace. Just all these really strong control cards.
Force of Will wins the war over Counterspell. However, Terminus is still on this deck, and now this is where Snapcaster Mage comes to play. He's going to use a Tundra and a Dust Bowl to pay for it. And you have to imagine he's going to go after the Counterspell in the graveyard. And he says, I would like to try to counter this Terminus again, if you don't mind. Duke. A little bit of mana. Looks like this may be a Swords of Plowshares to take care of the Batterskull.
Masterfully played by Reid Duke here. The fight was never about the Terminus in the first place. And he got, we saw this wall of Counterspell, Snapcaster, Counterspell that Tom had put up. That was why I didn't think Reid would be able to win, because I did not see how Reid was ever going to resolve and entreat the Angels. Now I see how he's going to do it.
Yeah, he's got to get his opponent to counter spells that don't matter in the grand scheme of things. Strong is, I think, appropriately putting a lot of attention towards getting Jace off the table because it's Jace. You need to do that. But Reid, I think, is saying, you know what? I need you to counter some of their spells so I can try to resolve and treat the Angels, because that's the way I'm going to win the game. Because you can clock my Jason. It's likely that over time you'll be able to kill my Jace. Yeah. So Jace does go down to 4 via the damage from Stoneforge Mystic. Now Reid figuring out what he needs to do.
I doubt he wants to crack the fetch land. He does have that top on top of his deck. He'd love to have that card again. Remember, the advantage Reid has isn't in his threats. It's in his card selection. It's because he has that Sensei's Divining top that helps him in the matchup.
Currently on top of his deck, you see Strong weighing his options this turn. He's looking at a Jace, a Brainstorm, a Swords, and a Jite. Interesting to see if he wants to cast these spells at this point.
Yeah.
There might be a judge call right now. We are just making sure that everything is kosher, so. Tom, curious to know if he did Brainstorm with a Jace this turn or not. And that is not the case. He did not. Yeah, he did not Brainstorm with Jace because his draw was just Swords to Plowshares, which is something he's put back a couple times. So definitely sure that he has not Brainstormed with Jace yet this turn. His turn very simply was attack, and then we have this battle. So he will Brainstorm now.
And he's slowly rebuilding for the next counter war, and that's going to start with a Force of Will that he got off that Brainstorm. Still no resets for the top of his deck, so there's a bunch of Swords to Plowshares just kind of hanging out there.
Now here's the thing, if he had Brainstorm before combat, he wins that war over the Swords, and maybe the Jace is off of the table. So maybe that's a misstep, maybe it's not. Hindsight is 2020.
Now, I just like Thomas's ability to deal with Jaces. I don't think in this matchup Reid can protect his Jaces indefinitely. I mean, Tom's playing 2 Mishra's Factory and 4 Snapcaster Mage. That's very difficult to protect Jace from all of that. So you have to think with Reid, eventually his Jace is going to die. So Reid has to, in the amount of time it takes before Jace dies, he's going to have to gear up for this fight over Entreat the Angels.
Batterskull going to return to the grip. Tom draws his Swords. He says, I'm going to Jace right now. So he has used Jace this turn. Couple of cards coming here for Strong. Swords are going to go back yet again, it looks like. He's got no interest in those. You see another Snapcaster Mage picked up for Strong, however.
Yeah, 4 Snapcasters so powerful in this matchup.
Yeah, Caracas is going to come into play. Factory is going to go active. And it's been a while since we've seen the old Factory get to the red zone, but it looks like it's on its way in. They're going to go after Jace yet again. Stoneforge Mystic going to hang back on defense.
Yeah, the amount of recursion and late game Thomas has in this deck, this almost reminds me of back when people were playing cards like Riptide Lab with Snapcaster Mage. Just these decks that recurred everything forever and just ground your opponent out.
Reid Duke is going to make his move. He says, I'm going to go for it. Entreat the Angels is what I'm going to attempt to miracle. I want to see your graveyard, see what you do have access to. And now here this is. Strong.
It's the last possible turn. There's no reason for Reid to wait longer, because once he can't protect the Jace. Once the Jace is down, that means that he will be unable to, like, he'll be drawing 1 card a turn to Thomas's 2. The counter war is just going to get worse for him.
Snapcaster Mage plus Counterspell is going to take care of the Entreat the Angels, and that means those creatures get to take down Jace, but Strong still has the ability to activate Stoneforge Mystic to put an equipment into play. A really, really nice turn there for Thomas Strong, as Reid is going to sacrifice a fetch land. He does have one more Entreat the Angels to draw to, and that would be a really good time to find it. And again, though, Strong, if he does have another blue card in his hand, with that Force of Will over there, he still might be just fine.
Yeah. Thomas's deck is set up so well for this matchup. He just has so many counter spells. If you count Snap and 4 Snapcasters, Reid has to be the aggressive deck, and that's a really hard role for Miracles to take.
There's another Jace the Mind Sculptor here for Duke. See if Strong wants to fight over this. He's gripping that Force of Will. There are plenty of cards for him to remove, but he says that's perfectly fine. So here's a Brainstorm for Duke. He's going to look at 3 cards. We'll put a big die on there for you. But Duke going to look at a couple cards, and Entreat the Angels is among them. However, if Strong isn't countering Jace because he knows he can beat Jace on the ground right now with all these creatures, you have to imagine that he's saving that Force Will for one thing.
Yeah, and that's the other Entreat the Angels. Thomas showing really good patience in not countering the Jace there.
And it's certainly enticing because it is Jace after all.
He's pretty good in control mirrors. Generally, is a card you don't want to let resolve. But Thomas, I think, correctly identifying what matters now.
Time to spin that top again, and Reid is hanging out over there. You can see Reid with a deep breath, taking a look at it, saying, this is my shot. This is my way to win this game. I got to get this to resolve somehow. He's going to play a Scalding Turn and just pass the turn back. Strong going to activate, put a Batter Skull into play, trigger Living Weapon. In comes the Germ. He will untap all those lands. He's got Jace to activate on his turn as well. Going to draw Swords of Plowshares, as he has been for a couple of turns here. He'll draw the other one along with the Strand. He finally found a fetch land. I think that's what he was looking for, so he can put those swords away.
He's been drawing one. His turn for draw for the turn has been swords for like the last 4 turns, and his first card off Brainstorm has been the other one.
He's going to keep one of the swords in his hand, puts 2 cards back. Going to activate the factory. Now he's got to figure out where he wants to send all these creatures.
How much damage is this? Hold on. If he's activating factory, that's extra damage. So he's got 2, 4, 6,
10, 11.
Okay, not exact, not quite. I was wondering whether he had it.
So Jace is going to bite the dust for some of these creatures, some damage to get dealt, and Strong is going to gain a little bit of life. For Duke, again, it's all about Entreat the Angels, and if he can resolve it. Strong with the swords, with the Jite, Brainstorm, another Jace, and a Force of Will. He's been defending himself very well as Duke is going to spin the top and treats the middle card. Now it stays the middle card, I believe. We'll see if it's the top card yet. It's not.
Yeah, it looks like he's going to try to entreat on Thomas's turn.
Duke sitting here at 10. Strong says, I'm going to put a Jite into play. No sacrificing of the fetch land just yet. Don't know if he wants to or not. The answer is no. He draws a Plains for the turn. Now he's going to Brainstorm, draw swords, a Jace, and a Marsh Flats. I'm a little surprised not to see him reset his deck here in this situation. I'm not even sure if he has, well, he definitely has a land to get because he's got 6 islands, but it looks like he's happy. Reid anything but that facial expression.
He kind of he knows that Thomas has pulled away here.
An activation of the factory. Everybody into the red zone. It's a lethal attack. Duke looking at 2 cards, activate the top. This is a miracle to Entreat the Angels. It's going to be for a whole bunch as Duke is going to go down to 8, get some fetch lands, shuffle away the top, and fingers crossed here for Reid.
Yeah, only 1 counter spell at the moment for Strong, so there's a chance that this resolves. Less of a chance now that Reid tapped out.
That's a Force. Does Reid have Force plus blue card?
All right, he may have stolen it. Let's see. We're not there yet. There's a Brainstorm in Thomas's hand. But we're closer.
Strong is going to sacrifice.
We are closer.
He's going to get an island.
Sure.
He's got to find another Force Will. He's already used his counter spells. He's got Force Will or Spell Pierce. Maybe Snapcaster Mage. Yeah, he's got another blue mana because of the Flood Strand.
All right, so yeah, he can. That will work too.
This Brainstorm had better be good for Thomas Strong. Hit 1, hit 2, hit 3.
That
is not going to do it.
Wow.
Oh my goodness. Reid Duke is going to resolve this and treat the Angels for so much. Strong is scratching his head. He has to put 2 cards back on his deck. And he has to be wondering what went wrong here.
Yeah, there was a chance. And I think one thing he could have done is when he Brainstorm Brain Phase the main phase brainstormed with Jace. You mentioned it, you were surprised he didn't reset his deck, so he would have had an extra reset had he reset before that one. Then when he cast Inspeed Brainstorm, he would have had a third top 3. I don't know if he finds the counter spell in it, but Reid taking the narrowest of lines there.
And that is why he is one of, if not the best player in the world. Reid Duke does win game number 1 here over Thomas Strong. Up a game playing for top 8 with Blue-White Red Miracles versus Blue-White Stoneblade. We'll take a look at the sideboards. I've got Thomas Strong in front of me. 3 copies of Periphery Notes, a Blue Elemental Blast, a Flusterstorm, a Spell Pierce, a Vendilion Click, a Sword of Feast and Famine, a Sword of Fire and Ice, 2 Surgical Extraction, 2 Relic Progenitus, and 2 copies of Disenchant. I like Flusterstorm. I kind of like Spell Pierce. I like the Vendilion Click to break the parity. And I also like, actually, I kind of like both the swords here, Feast and Famine and Fire and Ice.
Yeah, I mean, I like the swords. I definitely like the Sword of Fire Ice in this matchup. I mean, there's a lot of hate for control in the main deck for Thomas Strong, but it gets even better for him post-board. He does have a lot of weapons that he can use there. I do think on Reid's side, he also has Vendilion Clicks, so I think there's going to be clicks on both sides. Reid has a lot more Red Blasts post-board. That certainly will help him. He'll board all the way up into 4 Red Elemental Blasts and Pyro Blasts post-board. We may see Reid try to board in another Entreat the Angels. He also can board in, well, yeah, I was going to say that seems to be what he can do. He can board in Humility if he wants. That'll hurt his Entreat the Angels plan quite a bit, but it also stops all these Snapcaster Mages that Thomas Strong is trying to do.
What an insane game. Reid just...
Yeah, that should.
He had his back against the wall the entire time. Strong had a Jace for, what, 6, 7 turns? Has more counter spells, but again, Reid having these battles over cards that in the grand scheme really don't matter. That Terminus, we had a real counter war over that, and maybe if Strong lets that resolve, we're looking at a wildly different game there. But Reid able to exhaust, find a timely Force of Will, resolve his Entreat the Angels, and win the game. And if you're Thomas Strong, you play that kind of game, you feel like you're probably advantaged in this sort of matchup, and you lose that game, everything goes to plan, your confidence has to be a little bit shaken here.
I mean, he probably thought he had won, and it takes a lot of persistence on Reid's side to take a game where you know you should be losing and continue to look for winning lines in it and then play to them. That's, you know, it's pretty demoralizing to be in a side where you're like, well, I shouldn't have any outs. And then be like, well, maybe if my opponent does X, Y, Z, then I can do this one thing and get him. And Reid did just that.
An incredible first game by both players, but it does go to Reid Duke on the narrowest of edges. And now we'll start game number 2. With about 28 minutes, a little underneath that here. Strong's got to pick up the pace. I mean, he did play that first game pretty quickly, but now he's got to make tight decisions, and he's got to do it fast. A draw does nothing for either one of these players, and Strong has his back against the wall. Neither player can win quickly, of course, given the nature of their decks. It's a slow, grinded out affair. It actually kind of gets grindier after sideboard, too.
I mean, yeah, for Thomas Strong, it's going to be really hard for him to win 2 games in the time limit. We'll see what can happen here, you know. Maybe we will get a faster game. It depends on how the players have played. I don't think anyone has a strategy that significantly speeds up their deck.
All right, Mr. Strong, you are on the play. He's going to lay out 7 cards, as will Duke. Both players taking a look. Most hands will be keepable since neither deck is too quick here. Both players will keep. We're underway. Just an island here for Strong. Duke will take a draw. See what land he wants to lead things off with here. He'll go with a Tundra. He'll kick it back over to Strong. Strong will take a draw. Flooded Strand's what he found. He's going to go for a Stoneforge Mystic. Let's see if this resolves.
And no Spell Snare or anything in Reid's side, so that probably will work.
The big question is how much does Reid care about it, and what will Tom search for? Again, he does have Batterskull and GT in his main deck, but he's got that in his sideboard. Sword of Feast and Famine, as well as a Sword of Fire and Ice. He's going to go for the green-black sword, and that means he's going to try to go after Reid's hand. Reid says, I'm going to swords this, but that Sword of Feast and Famine is still very castable.
Yeah, always amused that against the blue-white-red deck, the black-green sword is one of the best ones.
Scalding Tarn here for Duke. He'll sacrifice that right away. He'll be searching up a land here in just a moment. Going to figure out which one it's going to be. Could be a Tundra, could be a Volcanic, could just be simply an island, as he does consult his hand. Goes to the drawing board. He will go get a second Tundra.
Yeah, and Reid's plan is just about slowing things down. You know, swordsing the Stoneforge Mystics, that he can't put the sword into play. Maybe there'll be nothing to equip the sword to. One of the dangers is that because Tom has all these Snapcaster Mages, if Tom gets that sword down, then he can do things like end step Snapcaster Mage, untap, equip.
They're very volatile. Counterbalance with no top. What's going to happen? You've got no idea. Going to trigger this. Take a look. 0 for 1 for Mr. Reid Duke. Trying to reveal a Brainstorm. Make it a little less volatile since he can set things up with Brainstorm. But now we're going to trigger the Stoneforge.
The next swing will probably not be a miss.
Chances are you're right about that. Time to search up an equipment, and it's Sword of Fire and Ice. So it looks like Strong actually has 4 equipment after sideboard. Each of these equipments causing a different problem.
Right. Amusingly, none of them give protection from white, so Reid's chief removal spell will still work.
Yeah, Swords of Plowshares is still alive, as Duke is going to untap and take a draw. Brainstorm is what he found. Brainstorm is what he's going to cast. Is he looking for lands? That's be an interesting question, as Strong will sacrifice Flooded Strand. Maybe a Spell Pierce is in order here.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the few opportunities he gets for a Spell Pierce. We'll see if that works. I mean, there could be a 1 on top of Reid's deck, to be fair.
Well, there was before. There, in theory, there could be again. Then again, I could be wrong about that. As Strong does take 1. He'll be at 19, and there is a Spell Pierce. Reid says, I'm going to Brainstorm in response. How about that?
Well, he's going to get both Brainstorms most likely now.
Yeah. So hit 1, 2, and 3. We'll see Reid put some cards back here.
Yeah, so the first Brainstorm's going to resolve, and now he just got an extra card off the Brainstorm because he got a counter spell. Now that the Pyroblast counters the Spell Pierce, Reid will get to Brainstorm again. So basically just cycled both these Brainstorms, and for free, got a Spell Pierce out of Strong's hand.
Yeah.
Pretty good turn.
See if Reid has found a land that he likes, however.
Yeah, this advantage will not... Yeah, if he doesn't have a land, this advantage doesn't matter for much.
Going to put 2 cards back. Fetch land would be perfect, and it is. There's a Flooded Strand before passing the turn back over to Strong. You have to wonder what the top card of Reid Duke's deck is right now. As Strong looks like he may have just passed the turn back, ready to put a weapon into play. A Terminus does show up here for Duke.
Yeah, so what Reid's doing, he's just trying to keep the board clear. Eventually, he will get his counter top lock going, and that should be enough for him to ride it home. The one thing he has going for him in this matchup is that once he gets a counterbalance down, it's hard for Tom Strong to ever get it off the board. He does have, I believe, I don't even know if he has any way to get it off the board,
not
actually.
really. You normally look for a card like Venser or Disenchant-esque Effect. It's not there. Now, Reid, come on, man. Puts 2 cards back on top of his deck. One's a Terminus, the second is an Entreat the Angels. And that's going to counter the Vendilion Click.
Oh, wow. Entreat the Angels with X equals 3.
Yes. So what Strong was trying to do was take away the Terminus with it in his hand, won't be able to cast it. Doesn't work out that way, but Strong is going to present another threat here. This is a Jace the Mind Sculptor. Right. Let's see if this gets in.
So now the Entreat the Angels is counter to spell. Well, we don't really want to draw it yet, so we're going to go ahead and shuffle.
Reid going to go a searching.
Can he find a Jace of his own is the question. Or maybe he just has a Red Blast.
Yeah, there's a chance of that. You said he's got a lot of those after sideboard.
He has 4 after board.
That's a lot of that effect. Boy, is that a lot. 2 Pyroblast, 2 Red Blast.
It's a lot.
Does he have one in his hand? He's going to trigger Counterbalance first, see if he can get a freebie. After Strong does shuffle and present. Top card is a Karakas. Does he have a Red Blast? This is 2 mana. Just Counterspell. That'll do just fine, I imagine. See if Strong does have a Forcible in his hand. We know he's got a lot of equipment, so he does not. Duke is going to untap. He'll draw that Karakas. Does he have a Jace? Oh, yes, he does. And he knows it's good to go.
And Reid assembling the lock. It's not countertop yet, but it's Jace, counter Jace, which is pretty good, too.
Duke going to draw 3 with Jace. It's time to put 2 back in just a moment. This is poetry in motion, my friend.
Yeah, I really like the play with the double Brainstorm to bait a Spell Pierce. Now, it would be so much better if Tom Strong still had the Spell Pierce in his hand right now. Maybe he would have left a mana untouched. Maybe Reid couldn't just go for this Jace, but that whole setup there just kept grinding card advantage.
Jace puts 2 cards back. We pass it over to Strong. Draws a counterspell a little behind schedule. You see the 3 equipment in his hand, a Sword of Feast and Famine, a Sword of Fire and Ice, and a Batterskull. All he can do is simply pass the turn back over to Duke with a counterbalance and a Jace hanging out. Jace, you have to imagine, will be brainstorming again. Could certainly Fate Seal in this situation, however. Duke going to start with a Flooded Strand. Now he will draw 3. And we'll see what 2 he wants to put back and how he wants to move forward here on this turn.
Yeah, we will see what he does here. He's just locking things out. Eventually, he's going to find a Sensei's Divining Top, and that should be able to seal it for him. The big problem is that Thomas Strong's not able to make any headway into this board. He doesn't have any permanents on the battlefield, and it's not clear how he's going to get them onto the board.
Sensei's Divining Top we'll have a response. It'll be a Snapcaster Mage. Trigger that, and that is an extension of the hand. Reid Duke is going to win this match over Thomas Strong. 2-0 in playing some beautiful magic. Looks to his friends in the back. You got to imagine it's his other brothers from the Peach Garden Oath, Owen Turtenwald and William Huey Jensen. Moves on to 12-3-1 with some amazing play.
Yes.
Wow. Wow.
Excellent plan, Reid. A good run today. I believe 7-1 on day 2 to make it up to this record. Now Reid has to wait. He entered today at 11 points. He's the lowest breakers of the players with a draw. It is unknown whether or not this is good enough for a top 8. It's going to be very close.
It is very, very close. We're going to see